Hi guys, Dr. Kruse. This is algebra class, and I'm going to show you some basic zoom functions on the TI-83 or 84 calculator, such as zoom standard, does a standard 10 by 10 window, or zoom fit, where you give it the x's and it will stretch the graph vertically to fill the window. And then I'll show you how to zoom in and zoom out. All right, the first thing I want to talk about is the zoom standard function. And usually they ask you to do this if they say something like, just give me a standard view of the graph. And standard just means, like back in junior high, when you drew a graph with the origin at the center, and you went 10 steps up, 10 steps right, 10 steps left, 10 steps down. All right, geometrically, that's not technically a 10 by 10, but you get what I'm saying. We go 10 steps in every direction, just like we did back in middle school and junior high. So I'm going to go ahead and put this function in my calculator, 8 minus x squared. All right, I have it in my calculator here, 8 minus x squared. And I could go into the window and fool around with it and tell it what I want the x's to cover from low x to high x, going across the window left to right. That's horizontal. And then I could tell it what I want the y's to cover from the lowest y to the highest y. And I could give it vertical measurements. So I could do that in the window manually and tell it how wide I want the window to be and how tall I want the window to be. But it's quicker a lot of times just to hit the zoom button. I'm going to choose zoom, and it'll do all that for me. Now if I go down here to zoom standard, this is one of them that I want you to see today. That just gives you a standard graph that goes 10 in every direction. So I hit enter and wait a little bit. See, it's thinking up here in the corner. And it draws me a graph, and notice the dimensions here, starting at 0, starting at origin, it goes 10 steps right, 10 steps up, 10 steps left, and 10 steps down. That's a simple zoom standard graph. That's a simple standard view of a graph. It's a good place to start for almost any equation. Oh, and I forgot to show you one thing. I did want to go ahead and take a peek at the window here. When we hit zoom standard, it automatically sets this graph 10 steps in every direction. I want to show you what the window looks like. We could have done this manually by pressing window, and I could say I want the lowest x minimum, I want the lowest x to be -10, and the highest x max, to be +10. I'm saying I want the x-axis to start at -10 way over here and stretch across the screen over to +10. That's my horizontal axis. Scale just means they're going by ones. And I could have set it to the lowest y value, y min, at -10. That's down here. And then the highest y value at +10. So I could say that I want it to start at -10 down here at the bottom of the window and go up to +10 at the top of the window. So you can input these manually, but it's just so much quicker if you just hit zoom standard, and it does that for you. It puts all the 10s in the right places. Check that window again, and they figured out all these 10s for us. They placed all those 10s for us. So let me show you another zoom now called zoom fit. And with zoom fit, we're going to tell it how we want to stretch the x-axis, what we want it to go from across the screen left to right. And zoom fit will actually tell us how to stretch the y. It'll stretch the y values for us. We don't have to put these values in. We'll just tell it what x's we want to use, and it will stretch the picture up and down across the window. All right, so here's a good example of when I would use zoom fit. If they say something like find an appropriate window, that means they're not telling us a standard window. They're not telling us to go 10 in every direction. And especially if they tell me what to set the x's at, so if they use the word like horizontal span, or left to right, something like that, they're telling you to go from far left to far right using the numbers -3 to 3. So if they give you the horizontal span, if they give you the x's, you can input those in the window and then just hit zoom fit, and it will stretch the y's up and down to fill your screen. All right, so I've got my formula in here, and I'm just going to go to the window. I'm going to tell it I don't want to go from -10 to +10. I want to go from -3 to +3 because that's what they told me to do. So -3 to positive 3. That means the left side of the graph will start at negative 3 and stretch across the screen and finish at positive 3. So from negative 3 to positive 3 going left to right. I'm not going to mess with the up and down because zoom fit's going to do that for me. So zoom, and then zoom fit's all the way down at 0. There it is. Choose it. Give it a minute to think. See, it's thinking up there. And that's what it looks like from an x of negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. So our x's went from negative 3 to 3. We told it to do that. That was given. Now, as far as the y's, it stretched the y's up and down for us. I don't know how far up or how far down it went, but I can look in the window and see. Let's just see what they did. So they said, okay, I'm going to go from negative 3 to 3, left to right. As far as up and down, they said I'm going to start at negative, that's 54 1/1000ths of a step. That's not even close to one step down, not even close to one step up. It's 54 thousandths of a step down and 54 thousandths of a step up. That's super, super tiny, guys. I mean, I doubt we would have ever found that if we just bumbled around in here and tried to pick out y values that work. So zoom fit comes in handy if you know your x's, then just let the calculator figure out the y's with zoom fit. All right, and the last thing I'm going to show you is zoom in and zoom out. So I'm going to use this function right here. I'm just going to use a standard view going 10 in every direction. And then what I'm going to see is kind of a mountain peak, the top of a parabola sort of. I'm going to zoom in once near the peak. And then I'll kind of show you how zoom in and zoom out works. All right, so I have my equation in my y1. I'm just looking for a standard view, so I'm just going to do zoom standard and let it think. I have a 10 by 10 graph. It's going 10 right, 10 left, 10 up, 10 down. I can verify that in the window if I want to. It goes from negative 10 to 10 left to right. It goes from negative 10 to 10 up and down. So back to my graph. Now maybe I want to zoom in at the top of this peak right here. Let's just call that a mountaintop. So there at the top, at the peak, I want to zoom in. Well, first of all, I have a cursor here on the screen. It's right here at the origin, and I can move it anywhere on the screen I want to. I want to kind of use that as a target. I want to set that target on top of the mountain and tell the calculator to zoom in there. So I'm just going to press my up and down arrows here and find that cursor. There it is. See it moving around? And I'm just going to move that cursor pretty close to, top of the mountain, right about there. And once I get it kind of where I want, that's like a target, that's where I want to zoom in. I don't want to zoom in over here or here. I want to zoom in right there near the top. So back to zoom, and actually option number 2 is zoom in. Now, here's what throws people. I'm getting ready to hit enter. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and nothing happens. That's the same picture. But if I hit enter again, then it zooms in. See, there's the top of the mountain where my cursor is. And then every time I hit enter after that, it's going to zoom in some more. So now I've zoomed in like ridiculously close. All right, and that's where I put my cursor. It looked like I was right on top of the mountain, but when you zoom way, way in, it looks like I missed by quite a bit. How do I get back where I was? I just go back to zoom standard. Anytime you mess up or get lost, just go back to zoom standard. And what if I want to zoom out? Well, zoom out works the same way. Let's go put the cursor where you want it. Let's say I want to zoom out near the top of the mountain. I'm going to do zoom. I'm going to choose out. I hit enter, and the first time nothing happens, but the second time, there we go, I've zoomed way out, so you can barely see the top of the mountain there. All right, how do I get back? Well, I can zoom in, or I can just go back to zoom standard. So just some kind of fun stuff to play around with. Maybe you're curious about where that thing crosses the x-axis. So I can go over there and I can kind of zoom in. You can almost see where it crosses the x-axis. So I'd hit zoom and enter. Didn't do anything, so I hit enter again. And now I'm getting a pretty good look, see, at where it's crossing that x-axis. Heck, I'm going to zoom in one more time. See, and you're getting closer and closer, and you can kind of see what's happening there. Of course, anytime you want to go back, just go back to zoom standard and you're back to your original picture. All right, that's all I got for today, guys.